I'm Tom from Do It Yourself Home Automation, and today I'm looking at how my Medium articles from January of 2021 did. And I want to do this in part because I want to share more this year of my process. You can read more about my advice for writing on Medium at thriveonmedium.com, or you can follow me at medium.com/@TomSmith585. But I think it's really interesting when you are working on setting up your own Medium presence or any platform really to see what other people are doing. So I just want to go through and take a look at the articles I published in January 2021. We'll take a look at how they've done so far, maybe give a little inspiration or a little bit of a look at what's performing well on the platform right now. And since this is live, also feel free to ask any questions that you have about the articles or about Medium in general. I'm happy to answer those. So in January of 2021, I published 36 articles on the platform, so pretty decent. Not necessarily my highest month, but pretty decent overall. And I would say in general, it's good to publish one article a day. Try to go even a little bit more than that. So in 31 days, 36 articles. Pretty much hitting my goals there. It's important to be pretty consistent, I think, in order to build up a following on the platform. And I have about almost 7,000 followers on Medium as of January. So let's go take a look through some of these. This most recently published one, How to Take Professional Product Photos in Your Bathtub. This is part of my ongoing series on Debugger. Debugger is a consumer tech publication that I write for a lot on Medium. It's part of 1.0. And if you write about tech or you want to write about tech, Debugger is a great publication, relatively new. They do accept pitches and you can reach out to them. It's a house publication on Medium, so it's always great to write for one of those. Again, this is an ongoing series that I'm doing there, a column that I'm doing every week called Tech Shortcuts for Life. So I'm turning in drafts each week and then they're getting edited, and there's really nice art that they put together on these, and this go out every Monday. So this one has done pretty well, 1.3 thousand views, a 49% read ratio, and 50 claps, or 50 people clapping rather. I think these are kind of bite-sized. This one's actually pretty long for the series, in part because it has a lot of photos in it. Sort of bite-sized advice about using tech to streamline multiple things in your life. People tend to like these because they are very sort of tactical and results-oriented. That can do really well on the platform where you're sharing very specific advice that people can easily follow. That's the whole concept of that series. So a good read ratio on that overall. Interestingly, the next one's just a short form article announcing a live stream, kind of like the live stream I'm doing here. I'm trying to do more live streams in 2021. I think it's a really good medium to tie together Medium stories and also my YouTube channel. And if you're following along here, you can subscribe to me on YouTube to see more of the live streams I'll do this year. So whenever I do a live stream about a article I've written on Medium, I always do a short form article, which is a 1-minute read, and I just introduce what I'm going to be talking about, and then I embed the link to that live stream after the fact, so people can come in and watch the recording of it. Most people don't watch live; most people watch the recording. So I expect with this one, that's probably going to be the case as well. But it's interesting to see, under 100, but a little bit of viewership on there. This is an article I'm reviewing every La Croix flavor, the sparkling water. Not too much interest so far on the article here. It's mostly a set of YouTube videos, so I've been getting people interested on YouTube. But I'm going to be updating this article. This is one of the ones where I'm going to be updating as I go and linking into the videos as I create them. So trying to aggregate some of my YouTube content and put that out on Medium as a separate piece of content there. That could be an effective strategy if you want to embed YouTube videos or any kind of off-platform content into a Medium article. It's a good way to get people interested on that platform too. This is getting into I did a couple of articles in 1.0, which is Medium's kind of core tech publication. It's a much sort of more established publication than some of the other ones, with over 200,000 people that subscribe. So content there tends to do pretty well if it's engaging to an audience. So these are two stories that came out really back to back One of them is about Mozilla, and they did this big report looking at the internet's vital signs. And this was a really interesting one to put together. It was actually a relatively easy article to write, in part because Mozilla had reached out to me and shared the report a little bit in advance. This was under an embargo when I first did it. And the report itself has these really nicely broken down facts and figures, so different statistics. And I was able to reference those as I was developing this one. And there's just so much data here that it was pretty easy to follow along in that and just give sort of more background, more context to it. But they did a really great job, I thought, here of organizing everything in that report so that it was really easy to follow through. And there's just so much dense data in there that it was almost hard to keep it to reasonable read length here. So it's kind of started to balloon, but 8 minutes, still a reasonable length, and about 4,000. Smaller read ratio. Often publications like 1.0 bring in a lot of people from off-platform. Flipboard and other places will link to stories on there, and so you might see a lower read ratio because some of those people are not Medium subscribers, and that's fine. It's normal to see that. This one, though, is the exception that proves that rule. This was a really cool experiment that I did, where I actually sort of a little bit of a longer term one. She looked at how you can fool facial recognition platforms using masks and sunglasses. So one thing that was surprising to me is that facial recognition platforms are actually totally capable of recognizing your face, even if you're wearing a mask. So a lot of people don't realize that, I think, and that was a sort of surprising insight. So that was the first thing I wanted to look at was, is there a way I can fool these systems by wearing, Tom Cruise on my face, for example, or a mask that has a weird pattern or a special pattern that's supposed to fool these systems. And what I found was really that I couldn't. They're really good at recognizing faces, even with a mask. But I found this really interesting result that if you combine a mask and a pair of sunglasses, then the accuracy actually drops dramatically. So, and in this case, it couldn't even find my face. So this is really sharing that result, and then going a little bit into why this is the case, how facial recognition systems work, why they fail with something like a mask and sunglasses, and some strategies for people who might be at a protest or somewhere where there's facial recognition being used on sort of innocent people, and you want to avoid being recognized there. So anything I find that has to do with privacy and security is really compelling to Medium's readers. And in this case, it's a privacy and security article, but also with a practical technique that you can go in and apply, and a sort of hands-on experiential journalism element to it. And those combined, pretty healthy traffic here, 6.3 thousand views and 49% read ratio. This one was interesting. This is an announcement of a live stream about Bitcoin. The sort of stub here, this 1 minute read article that's literally just the live stream embedded, has 714 views. So that's actually surprising. I think that's just a testament to how much people care about Bitcoin right now. This one, Why Our Brains Love Physical Buttons. This was a longer piece to develop, and it's required, I think, a lot more research. It's a neuroscience piece. I'm a trained neuroscientist, so really like to do anything that combines tech and neuroscience, and if I can talk about my Leica Q camera in there at the same time, all the better. So this goes into, in a lot of detail, why people love buttons, people love physical interfaces. And, I think this was, these neuroscience pieces tend to be really compelling to people. The best one, let me see if I can find it in here. This is from a little bit further back. But the best one I did recently was Why Pirates Wore Eye Patches. This is up to 20,000 views. This is actually not even in a publication. It's just a brain science piece that I wrote, I think, back in December. And so drawing on the success of that one, I was thinking about what are other ways I can bring in that brain science element. And this was an interesting one that tied into tech. Again, this ran in Debugger, the consumer tech publication. This is just a short piece. This actually was originally published on Newsbreak. It's looking at why Boy Chick Bagels has the best bagels in the Bay Area. Local content doesn't tend to do as well on Medium, much better on Newsbreak, but I still like to publish that there. And I got a really nice comment on this one, somebody sharing their own experience with some of the bagels they grew up eating in Manhattan. So it's always nice to get that kind of reader response. That probably, again, won't do extremely well on the platform, but I still like to post that kind of content when I have the opportunity to do that. Let's see, where are we here? This was just more of a general sort of writing advice. Stop thinking about niches, start thinking about you. I was inspired by two other writers. I mentioned them here. Emily here, I really love her writing. She has a really strong voice, and you should go and follow her there. I just liked her piece about abandoning niches, making yourself the niche when you're developing content online. I think that's really great advice, well developed. Again, there's just some really awesome lines in here. So I wanted to kind of share my own perspective on that. Something I've been saying for a while, and I think I tried to build that out and provide some specific advice about kind of abandoning niches and looking at you as a brand, you as a niche, the things you care about or experiment with or write about being the thing that ties things together, and not saying, okay, I'm only going to develop home automation content for my home automation channel. Obviously, you can see I'm not doing that. So I think it's interesting to see others talking about that. Not a ton of traffic on that. That's in the startup, but still a fair number of people clapping for it. So I think it makes an impact. These ones I also find tend to build more momentum over the longer term. For example, I have another one in here. Let me see if I can find it. Might be even further back. I'll just scroll down here. But a piece about how Medium will promote your content for their new setup. And let's see if I can find that in here. Yeah, so this was published back in October. It's up to about 7,000 views. Again, sort of general writing advice. This was in Better Marketing. Again, not a house publication, but I think those can definitely do well on there. But again, you don't usually see as much traffic up front, usually until it gets picked up on search, kind of just gets a couple hundred views, and then I expect that'll probably start to bring in more over time. This is another debugger piece looking at how to get a COVID shot, and the fact that people are using Eventbrite as well as all of these other tech platforms to get or schedule COVID shots, including Google Forms and that kind of thing. This was interesting because we did the piece after the sort of initial story had broken. So a lot of people did pieces all about, Eventbrite being used for COVID shots because it's just such a weird, compelling thing. We came in about 2 weeks after that, so we were sort of saying, okay, how can we still make this interesting and relevant? So I did more of a broad, instead of just reporting that was happening, did more of a broad look at what are the different platforms people are using currently to schedule shots, and what is the impact, and why is this happening, and where is it being done better? So it's a little bit more of an in-depth, more detailed analysis. Decent traffic, not necessarily the best, but I think it's still an important piece, and I think people will probably read it more over time. This was just a single photo. I wanted to do something to acknowledge Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This is a photo from one of my company's partners, the Afro-American newspapers. Just a really beautiful shot. Sometimes it's nice to publish just a short form where you're sharing one photo, and I like to say photo in the headline so people know that they're clicking through to an article that's literally just one photo with a couple sentences commentary. This is another short form piece. This is looking at a New York Times article talking about the efficacy of the COVID-19 shots. Again, this is where having a photo from Unsplash can be super helpful because it's easy to just illustrate, link to the article, and then provide a little bit of my own commentary there. I just thought it was an important finding, so I wanted to highlight it. And again, that's a really nice place to use a short form post. This one was, I think, probably the highest traffic piece of the month, 13.7 thousand views. Really good read ratio too, given that it's a 5-minute read, so it's relatively short, but 48% on there, and quite a lot of people clapping for it. This is another piece in the Tech Shortcuts for Life series. This one is about mining a little Bitcoin on nearly any PC, and it provides these very specific instructions for mining Bitcoin using a software program called NiceHash. I also did, again, that live stream that's now embedded in the article, so you can see like a live version of a demo of the software. And this is basically showing you how to do a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of Bitcoin mining just so you can get familiar with Bitcoin and other technologies like that. And this definitely, touched on a nerve, I think. People were really interested in it. Continues to get good traffic over time. And again, I think people are just finding Bitcoin very compelling right now. And this was something that I was planning to do this later in the year. And then with the run up to Bitcoin being at, $40,000 per Bitcoin, it was obvious that this was a good time to sort of jump on this. So we ended up moving it higher in the lineup, and it tied in really nicely, I think, to what was going on in the world, and ended up, again, performing pretty well there. This one, general writing advice, talking about Newsbreak. Not a ton of traffic yet, but again, these tend to build over time. This is self-published, not in a publication. This is a series. This one, GPT-3, is angry at me. This is a series that I started to do that's looking at basically the GPT-3 platform and using it for sort of interesting or novel things. So this is a situation where I asked it to summarize. It's an AI platform. I asked it to summarize some text, and it basically ended up going on a rant about millennials. So I think it's sort of funny how it mimics human speech, including human speech where people are complaining about the younger generation. I just want to make sure I didn't skip. There's one I think I skipped over here. I think we missed a couple here. This is another one in the Tech Shortcuts series. This is looking at the science of the Instant Pot. 2,000 views, 43% read ratio. People, again, I think find any kind of tech and cooking to be compelling. This is a very detailed tech kind of finance piece. I didn't really expect it to get a lot of views. It's in the very niche publication here, Data Driven Investor. About 100 views. That's fine. This is the one I was looking for. Sea Shanty about Joe Biden's inauguration. 2,000 views there, about 50% read ratio. This is another one in that same series of using GPT-3 to do sort of interesting things. This is inspired by a tweet from, I think he's now Joe Biden's press secretary or one of the people in Biden's cabinet, making a joke about how people love sea shanties now. So they were saying, we should do the whole inauguration speech as a sea shanty. So of course I wondered what would that look like. Fed that to GPT-3, and we get this really hilarious AI generated sea shanty. Again, this was something that came out, I think, on the inauguration day, so it tied into a very specific kind of trending story there. And let's see, this one is, again, short form. This is the Wall Street Journal did a story about my crypto mining after reading the story in Debugger, one of my stories in Debugger. This is my chicken hanging out with a cryptocurrency mining computer. This is the Wall Street Journal article, my photo at the top. It's my chicken, my computer, and then a really great story here by Sarah Needleman on Wall Street Journal. And so again, I did a short form piece just sharing that, and it's gotten a little bit of traffic there. Let's see, I think we're caught up here. Newsbreak, GPT-3. We'll see where the series goes. Some of them are getting good traffic, the GPT-3. Some of them, not as much. I think it'll probably depend on how well these tie into kind of current events. This is more of a photo essay. Food robots in closed stores. Looking at Mountain View, downtown Mountain View, California, Castro Street. I really love with Medium, you can make your photos full screen here. And that's a nice thing to do if you want to publish a photo essay, if you have nice high quality photos. In this case, it's really just anchored around that. And this was one that I brought in from Newsbreak originally too. Nice to publish these in a publication. This one ended up in the startup, a little bit of traffic there. This one, how Nassim Taleb says you should think about the COVID shot. I really like Nassim Taleb, interesting thinker. I've been following him for a long time. And this is a kind of a technical piece about the sort of risk and reward of the shot versus not getting the shot, linear and nonlinear dynamics. This one ended up, let me see where I ended up having it. Yeah, this is also Data-Driven Investor, but Taleb is someone that I think a lot of people are interested in. So this ended up with more traffic, probably just from that name recognition. And it was, I think, a pretty robust discussion on Twitter about it too. So that tends to drive in more traffic there. This one was inspired by a CES announcement, upcycling old Android devices. Again, a debugger piece. Samsung announced that they were going to provide tools for people who want to upcycle their old Android phones. Been doing this for a long time. So I did a piece here about all of the ways you can do this without having to rely on Samsung. And that's gotten a bit of traffic. Again, this is one that I think will do better on search in about 6 months when this starts to get picked up by search engines. I expect to see that increase pretty dramatically because, again, Android, reusing Android devices, it's an issue a lot of people have. Maybe people didn't immediately have it on Medium, but I think over time they're going to find that to be helpful. Another live stream piece. This one I really enjoyed writing. This is the tech behind breaking news stories. I'm a photojournalist and a photography agency, so this was sharing sort of a behind-the-scenes look at how photojournalists get photos out so quickly, and talking about the tech, the history of it, and some of the kind of direct tie-ins to what happened at the Capitol. And now we're getting back into that time period. I did a lot of content around that, so we're probably going to start to see more of that in here. Racist Roots of Parler's weirdly French name. This grew out of a discussion I saw on Twitter where people were wondering, how do you pronounce Parler's name? It's a French verb, parler, but people call it parlor. It originally actually was called parlay, so I wanted to delve into that a little bit, and I did sort of a deep reading of the history of the term and why it could have been changed into parlor, and the sort of racial dynamics of the room, the parlor. This one, some people liked it, some people were very angry about it. It doesn't really matter, as long as people are engaging with our content, it's a positive thing, and it's got decent traffic on there. 41% read ratio, it's a 5-minute piece, so that's pretty standard. This is another one in the Tech Shortcuts for Life series. This is actually the first sort of core article in that series, which launched at the beginning of the year. This is looking at using Google Drive Scan to digitize documents and go paperless. Again, very tactical, very hands-on. You can use this immediately, and that usually leads to pretty good traffic and a pretty decent read ratio. These were a couple of short pieces right after the attacks on the Capitol happened, looking at kind of how my colleagues were affected, sharing some photos and that kind of thing. And I think this was important. Again, didn't expect to get a ton of traffic. These were both self-published, but it's kind of a perspective I felt I wanted to share. This definitely goes down. The attack on the Capitol should spark a new debate about facial recognition. This is definitely the most controversial article I think I did in January. I was happy with this art. This is something I put together myself from public domain content and photos I've shot. And this was arguing that, something I've argued for a while, that for facial recognition software, you can ban it, but a more effective strategy might be to develop a Fourth Amendment framework for using it ethically. And I argued that in the context of identifying the people who had attacked the Capitol. And this definitely made a lot of people angry. There's a lot of discussion on Twitter about it. Not a huge read ratio on it, but it did get about 4,500 views. A lot of that's probably coming in from external platforms like Twitter, where people were kind of arguing about it, arguing against it, but trying to back it up. There were a lot of discussion and debate going on around that, and that's pretty good, again, for a self-published piece. This is just a brief finding I shared from the company Blind. They often send me really great surveys and info there, and it was nice to be able to share this brief insight that Facebook employees in general agreed with their company's actions on banning Trump from Facebook. This was a piece that kind of got, unfortunately, buried by everything going on at the Capitol. This is one in the Internet Happy Place series that 1.0 did, and it was also on Debugger. And this was talking about the Backyard Chickens Facebook group, which I've talked about a bit before. I was really happy with this one. It was kind of a nice personal perspective, and it just unfortunately came out the morning of the attack on the Capitol. So it's just bad timing. And, sometimes I think that happens. You can have a good piece and the timing just isn't right. Obviously, it wasn't really right to be promoting this as that was all happening. So it kind of just ended up not doing as well, and it's just sometimes you have to sacrifice one to the to the news cycle there, and then dive in and start to offer commentary as I did here on that sort of core big news story that was happening. This one came out just before that. I really like this. This is in the bold italic, which is a Medium House publication that focuses on the Bay Area, looking at historical photos of the Cliff House. The Cliff House restaurant, very iconic in San Francisco, unfortunately closed on January 1st because of COVID and other kind of contractual issues. So this is looking at photos from my company going back to the 1800s, the entire 137-year history of the Cliff House, told through these historical photos, going all the way up to a photo that I took in 2018. This was a really fun one to do, really interesting, compelling content. I was really happy with it. It did well in the bold italic, almost 3,000 views, 52% read ratio, popular story, and it's just really nice to share some of those really beautiful historical photos and engravings. This is a call out to a survey or a kind of analysis piece that a company called SmartFrame that's in my industry did that I thought was really good, looking at visual AI trends for 2021. Just a little bit of my own commentary, again, data-driven investor. This one is a teaser article for a piece, the future piece about the Instant Pot that ended up in the Tech Shortcuts for Life series and about that series in general. It was in Curious. Sometimes these short form pieces, if they get curated, end up in these sort of publications. This one was one where you could see the display title and the ultimate headline I went with is different. The reason for that is it was pointed out to me that this one, the title makes it sound like the story will share how you can cook an entire week's worth of food in 3 hours. And if people saw that, and they were probably expecting that, and they may not have wanted to, read it if it didn't talk about that. So I changed the headline after the fact. This is on the advice of my editor. And now it's how to save time and make life easier, which is really more what the series is about. Still about 380 views, which is decent, given that it doesn't have a lot of content beyond just teasing the series. So sometimes even those really short form pieces can do well. This is the first piece in the series, launching the whole series. This actually did better than I was expecting, about 5,000 views, 56% read ratio. Medium's founder, Ev Williams, I think even commented on this one, or at least highlighted this one. And this just introduces the concept. I spent a lot of time developing it, trying to really articulate what we were trying to do here with Tech Shortcuts for Life. And so I wanted to develop something that was going to be really solid, and I'm glad that this was well received. Again, I think more, better received than I was necessarily expecting. Yeah, there's Ev commenting on it, so thanks for following me there. And I think, again, sometimes when you develop something that's just articulating the concept and you don't know that people are going to really read it, you can be surprised. And I was surprised it's got 5,000 views so far. And then finally, this is one just a little silly. It's basically just a photo and commentaries. Is testing out short form, kind of something I would put on Twitter, trying to see how it would do here on Medium. You can do that sometimes, really, really short form. It's actually gotten 200 views, almost an 87% read ratio. So sometimes those can perform decently. So that was my January. And let's see where we are overall. So the last 30 days, this is coming into February, 115,401 views, 44,616 reads, 1,671 fans. Pretty decent. Usually it'll be somewhere a little bit higher than that. And then if there's a month where something really takes off, you can get 500,000 to 1 million views on the last 30 days if you have a piece that really attracts a lot of viewership. But this is for a standard month, maybe a little bit lower overall, but usually in my range of about 110,000 to 150,000 views across all of my content. If you found this helpful, please subscribe here on my YouTube channel. And you can do that down below. Feel free, if you have any questions about any of these articles, to go ahead and put those in the responses. I'm happy, or in the questions down below. I'm happy to answer any questions here or on Medium, and I'll be doing more of these live streams, probably more frequently and for shorter time periods, looking at performance of different pieces and just, again, sharing